Okay, good evening everyone, and we are back here in the weekly Parshas year, Parshas Emor. Many mitzvahs in these Parshas. I'd like to focus on something that's quite interesting. The pasuk says, "V'shor oiseh," an ox or a seh or a lamb, oiseh v'esbenoi, the mother, the father, and its child, lo yishchatu b'yom echad, you're not allowed to shech them on the same day. You're allowed to shecht animals, you're allowed to have steak, you're allowed to have hamburgers, you're allowed to bring korbanos, sacrifices, but a mother cow and her child and her calf, you're not allowed to shecht them on the same day. You cannot slaughter them on the same day together. You have to wait 2 days apart. And the obvious question is, why? What is the big deal whether or not you take a mother and you take its lamb or its offspring and you shecht it on the same day? So from the Mefarshim, the commentators, they spend a lot of time to explain what is the sensitivity that the Torah has over here of why it is that you're not allowed to shecht one with the other. So we'll start with the Sefer HaChinuch, and the Sefer HaChinuch writes the following. He says, Al tzara pshat k'mokein. The simple explanation of this mitzvah is, Shuligboya b'nafshenu midas hachemla. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to affix inside of our nefesh, inside of our souls, the midah of chemla, of compassion. Ulaharchek midas hachzorius, and to distance from ourselves the midah, the trait of achzorius, of cruelty. She midah ra, which is a terrible midah, a terrible trait for a person to have. How does this mitzvah get away from the midah of achzorius, of cruelty, and make you into someone that is a bal chemla, you have mercy and compassion? Even though that HaKadosh Baruch Hu allows us different animals to eat, HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanded us, do not shech them, do not kill them, the mother and the child, on the same day. In order to instill inside of our hearts the midah of chemla, the attribute of mercy and compassion. How is that compassionate? I would think the opposite. If a mother and a son are standing in the line to be slaughtered, so then take them both at the same time, so the mother doesn't have to watch the child doesn't have to watch the mother go and get slaughtered. If you let the mother get slaughtered and that poor baby over there is whining away for the next 24 hours after the mother died, why would you do such a thing? Or if the child ends up getting shechted in front of the mother, what a pain, what a distress for the mother. Why do we make the mother have to live with that for the next 24 hours of her life? Let's kill them both. And yet, the Torah says you're not allowed to. You can do one, but you can't do both. One without the other, you'll leave the other one for the next day. And that, says the Sefer HaChinuch, is going to instill a midah of chemla, of compassion inside of you. Now, it would seem to be that the Sefer HaChinuch is going off what he said right before this, which we did not read. And over there, the Sefer HaChinuch is speaking about this idea that the reason that we don't take the life of a mother and their child on the same day is because there's something called kiyum hamin, which is the existence of that particular species. There is an offspring, there is a father, there is a mother, there are offspring. That min, that species is going to endure. And if I end up taking away the mother and the child on the same day, even though I'm not ruining the species, because there's plenty more sheep and plenty more oxen that are out there, nevertheless, it's as if I'm cutting off this chain in this family all at the same time. And if a person comes along and destroys a family all in one day, that's midas achzorius, that is a midah, a trait of cruelty. And the Torah says you can't be a cruel person. You must have the midah of chemla, the attribute of compassion. So even though perhaps we might think to ourselves that it's a little bit cruel that we have to leave the mother to sit around and mourn the loss of her child, or the child to mourn the loss of the mother that was shechted in front of their eyes, nevertheless to wipe out that family altogether, like a Nazi Yamach Shemo, that's even worse, says the Torah. And therefore, the mother, the father, and the child together with it, that you cannot do in one day. The Targum Yonasan ben Uziel on this pasuk says a little bit of a different approach, and he writes like this: Ami b'nei Yisrael, the nation of Klal Yisrael, heichma da'avunan rachaman mishamayah. They should liken themselves to their merciful Father in heaven. Kedon rachaman ba'ara. So too, they have to be merciful down here in this world. Toirasa rechala, when it comes to an ox or to a sheep. Yasa v'yaspera leisichsun b'yoyim echad. The mother and the child you're not allowed to shecht and do away with on the same day. Just as HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a Rachaman, is a merciful God, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu only brings good things and mercy upon a person and their family, so too says the Torah, you are to liken yourself to the ways of the Ribbono Shel Olam, and that means that just like HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I guess maybe we could say similar, just like Hashem would not destroy a family all in the same day, so you must be merciful as well. You cannot destroy a family here in the same day. There's another mitzvah that we have that is similar to this, and perhaps this will give us a little bit of a different direction, which we'll see in the words of the Ramban and how he quotes the Rambam as well. There's a mitzvah much later on in the Torah, in the Parshas Kiseitze in Devarim, and the pasuk says, "Leisachraish b'shor b'chamor yachtav." You're not allowed to plow an ox and a donkey together. Now, the Pashat Pshat, the simple reason that you cannot put them together is because one is bigger and stronger, the other one is smaller and weaker, and the one that's smaller and weaker is going to try to keep up with the donkey will try to keep up with the ox. It's very hard. And so that donkey is going to have what's called tsar, bali chaim, it'll be in anguish, animal anguish. And therefore, says the Torah, you're not allowed to plow them together. You want to plow in the field, it's an ox and an ox. It's a donkey and a donkey. But you cannot mix them together because one is stronger than the other, and it will cause a lot of stress to the one that is smaller. They won't be able to pull their weight. But the Baal HaTurim says differently. And the Baal HaTurim says on this mitzvah the following. Shemifarish tam shaloi lachreish b'shor v'chamor. The reason that you can't plow together an ox and a donkey is lefi shashur maligera, because the shor, an ox, is a kosher animal, and it's maligera. It ends up chewing its cud, so it's constantly regurgitating its food as it's plowing in the field. Remember, there's another mitzvah that you're not allowed leisachsoim. You're not allowed to muzzle the mouth of an animal while it's plowing in the field. It has to be able to eat what it is plowing. Otherwise, the animal will go out of its mind. How could it be? Imagine you walk into a candy store and we don't give you one single piece of candy you're not allowed to have. And that would be torture for a child, or for an adult for that matter. So all the more so, you have a behemoth, an animal, that's plowing in the fields, and as it's plowing in the fields, it's muzzled, and it sees all this luscious grass in front of its face. It can't even have one single bite. Cruelty to animals. You can't do that. So this ox and this donkey that are plowing in the field, they are allowed to eat the crops that they are plowing. Says the Baal HaTurim, the shor is the kosher animal, and therefore it's maligera, it's chewing its cud. The chamor ain't no maligera, but the chamor, the donkey, doesn't chew its cud. It's a not kosher animal. Ukeshayira hashor maligera. And when the donkey sees that the shor, that the ox, is chewing its cud, he believes that the shor is just eating and eating and eating and eating. The donkey apparently doesn't have the ability to eat so much. Umitztayer. And the donkey goes into donkey anguish over here, over the fact that the shor is able to eat and the donkey has nothing to eat. V'zehu, and that's what it means, al tachreish al reyecha ra'a, The donkey is going through a whirlwind of thoughts over here and is going through a bad time because it sees that its friend, the shore that it's plowing together with, is maleger. It just keeps eating and eating and eating. The Torah, in all of these mitzvahs, when it wants us to develop this midah of chemla, of compassion, it's saying even on the emotional state of an animal. Even though what's a donkey? It's the the beast of burden. A donkey is from like the lowest rung on the animal chain over there. It comes about in an unusual way. A donkey is not such a chashuv animal. And yet we are forced to worry about the feelings of a donkey, that a donkey might be in tsar, might be in anguish. You'll have to send it to the therapist because it's jealous of its partner over here, the shore, the ox, which is maleger the entire time. He needs to go on to, some kind of happy pill over here just to make himself happy right now. So the Torah says, you have to be sensitive. You have to be careful. Even to a donkey. With that being said, I want to share with you the words of the Ramban, who's speaking about this mitzvah. And the Ramban says over the following idea. He says, and he writes, the mitzvah over here of Oisa v'Esbenoi, that you cannot shech them on the same day. Afal pishe hiter hashchita, like we said in the Sefer HaChinuch, even though the HaKadosh Baruch Hu permitted shchita, permitted slaughter of the animals, nevertheless, ki'ilu yachris baminahu, the same idea that we saw in the Sefer HaChinuch, if you shecht a mother and their child on the same day, it's ki'ilu, it's as if you are causing the destruction of the species. Not the whole species, like we said. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is watching over the donkeys, He's watching over the sheep, He's watching over the oxen, the cows in the world. Just because you take away this cow and this baby, doesn't mean there won't be any steak left in the world. There still will be. But if it's one family, so says the Ramban, the way the Sefer Chinuch is saying is, it's an act of cruelty that you're taking this family out of the picture all in one day. Like the gangsters would come and they would take out a family if they needed to. You're taking out a family. But now he quotes the Rambam. And the Rambam says something else, fascinating. A little bit like we'll see from this Balaturim. And the Rambam says in the Mor Nevuchim, in his famous Guide to the Perplexed, the following words. He says, Kidei lihizoher. The reason the Torah is coming to tell us that you cannot shecht a mother and the child on the same day. And he says it's in only one way. You cannot shecht the child in front of the mother. According to the Rambam, the Isser in the Torah over here is that if you have a mother cow and their calf, you cannot shech the calf in front of the mother. Ki yesh lebehemais daiga gedoyla bezeh. Because animals have tremendous anguish over such a thing. Ve'ein hefresh bein daigas ha'adam le'daigas ha'behemais alabanim. There's no difference between the anguish that a human being has in such a situation to the anguish that an animal has in this situation. Ki avas ha'em v'chanoisa, because the love that a mother has, v'chanoisa livnei bitna, and the tender love and care that she has for the children that are in her womb, it doesn't come from intelligence. It doesn't come from their ability to be able to speak to the child, because that's only for human beings. But rather it's like an instinct that is found in the animals, just like you find amongst human beings. Just as a parent, a mother, has a supernal love for her child. You ever notice that a mother can hear her baby crying like from all the way down the block? The father's sitting at home, he's eating his dinner, everything is fine. The mother suddenly gets frantic. Do you hear something? No. What do you hear? Are you sure? I think I hear Yankel crying. Yankel, come on, he's out. He's 5 blocks down, he's playing basketball with his friends. He's fine. The mother jumps out of the house, she's running down the street, and sure enough, she comes 5 blocks away. There's Yankel, he's got a cut on his knee, and he's crying. A mother has an innate tendency. She has an instinctual feeling as a mother. She has a tremendous love for that child, and anything that gets in the way of that love is daiga, is worry, it's bother, it's anguish, it's pain. And therefore says the Rambam, when it comes to this mitzvah over here, of oisav yaspanoi, of a person that's not allowed to shech the mother and the child on the same day, the reason the Torah is telling us that you can't do it is because you're not allowed to be cruel even to an animal. You have to take the feelings, the worries, the daigas, the emotions of an animal. There's a beautiful picture that was published who knows how many decades ago. One of the great mashkichim of Eretz Yisrael was Rav Elia Lopian. Rav Elia Lopian was a master of Musar. He learned in Kelm in Europe. He ended up in England at a certain point. And then he came to Eretz Yisrael. In Eretz Yisrael, everybody knows that there used to be a rat problem. And then they imported the cats, and now there's a cat problem in Eretz Yisrael. They got rid of the rats, but they have lots of cats. I guess it's better to have cats than to have rats. So the cats roam the streets. They're all over the place. So either you get annoyed with them, or you'll be a tzaddik and you'll have compassion on them. So there's a very beautiful picture of Rav Elia Lopian who had rachmanis on the cats that were running through the streets of Eretz Yisrael, and you see him putting out the dish of milk, and you see the cat coming and lapping up the milk. Says the Torah, you're not only supposed to have compassion on the yosem, on the orphan, on the almana, on the widow, on the ger, on the convert, on the one who's traveling around, the one that's roaming around. You're not only supposed to have compassion on your wife and your children and everybody else around you. The Torah wants that the midah of rachmanis, of compassion, the midah of chesed should be so strong inside of a person, it's even on the animals. Like we know, the halacha is that if you're sitting down for a meal, and Rover is sitting down for his meal as well, and he did not yet have his alpo for the night, even though you have a nice, big, juicy piece of roast sitting on the table, potatoes, the smoke is wafting up, there's a nice glass of wine, there's some nice bread to dip into your butter, and it's geschmack, you can't wait to eat. But Rover has to eat first. There's something called tsar balei chaim. It's the tsar, the anguish that you cause to an animal, and their anguish matters also. And therefore, says the Rambam, that's this mitzvah over here. This mitzvah that the Torah is telling you is to help you develop, to work on the midah of rachmanis, of chemla, of compassion, to take into account that a mother who's going to watch her son shechted in front of her is anguish beyond belief. With all the stories that we heard of the Holocaust, how many mothers and children went to the gas chambers together, how many mothers had children that were ripped out of their arms, Rachmana litzlan, the anguish, the pain that they felt, how many people drove themselves crazy all of their lives because if I only would have done this, maybe I would have been able to save their life. Says the Torah, that's good, meaning that we have to have those thoughts as well. However, it starts base level. Base level is the animal kingdom. And if you learn to have that compassion over there, then you'll be able, l'chara it should be, you'll be able to transfer that compassion onto others. One of the great Bali Rachmana, the great people of compassion in the last generation was Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. Rav Shlomo Zalman was a man of tremendous scholarship, and also tremendous tzidkus, righteousness. And we just had it in the month of Nisan, there's the mitzvah to make a birchas ilanos, to make a blessing on the trees. We make a blessing, thanking HaKadosh Baruch Hu that He renews the trees every year, and they're so beautiful for us to be able to partake of. And the mitzvah is, of course, to go and bless a tree that is in the blooming time, the blooming season, in the month of Nisan, it's the springtime. And you're supposed to find a tree that has flowers that are blooming, maybe has a fruit that is growing there as well. And really it says, Ilanais Tovos, the language of the blessing is Ilanais Tovos, nice trees. So the custom, the halacha is that you should try your best to make the bracha when there's two fruit trees in bloom in front of you. So Shlomo Zalman Auerbach one day was going in Rosh Chodesh Nisan, he was going to make a bracha on the tree, and of course you could imagine the great Rosh Hashiva is flanked by his Talmidim, his students. And he's walking down the street in Yerushalayim to go make a bracha. And they pass a courtyard by some apartment building. And there's two beautiful fruit trees there in bloom. Little buds of the fruits are growing perfect to make the bracha. Rosh Shlomo Zalman keeps walking. Bachrim are surprised. It's right there. Why is he not making a bracha? So he walks a little bit further. And they come to another courtyard. And there are two beautiful trees in bloom with buds, with little fruits that are growing. And Rav Shlomo Zalman keeps walking past. And then he walks and he walks and he walks, and suddenly he gets to another courtyard, and there's one scrawny little tree with a few little leaves of blossoms, one little tiny fruit maybe that's budding inside of there. And he says, here we go, we'll make a bracha now. And he stands by the tree and he makes a bracha. And everybody answers, Amen. And there's a woman standing in the window. She answers, Amen, also to the bracha of Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. Well, the Bachim all make the bracha also because the Rosh Hashiva made it there. That's where they made it. As they're walking away, one of them says, Rebbe, I don't understand. The halacha is that when you're going to make a bracha on the fruit tree, it's supposed to be with two trees that are in bloom. Here was one. We passed other courtyards that had two trees. Why did you make the bracha only here on one? And Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach said the following. Did you see the woman standing in the window who answered Amen to my bracha? And they said yes. They said she's an almanah, she's a widow. She waits every year for me to come and make a bracha by her tree. He said the mitzvah of making a bracha on two trees, that is at best the Rabbanan and most likely just minhag. But the mitzvah to have compassion on almanah, that's a mitzvah's essay, a positive commandment, midaraisa from the Torah, that's worth more. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to be able to live a life where we are compassionate, we are understanding, we are people that are taken care of, and we are having the mercy on others that we are supposed to. Once that we're speaking about Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, there's another famous story with him, that it was once, I believe that it was Erev, I want to say that it was Erev Sukkot, a very busy time in Eretz Yisrael. People are running around, finishing touches on their sukkah, going here, going there, doing everything, buying the lulav and esok, getting everything ready for the holiday. And Rav Shlomo Zalman calls one of his grandchildren. He says to his grandson, he says, Yaakov, I need you to come right away. I have something for you to do before Yom Tov. It was already the afternoon time, and my grandfather asked, I'll come. So he comes running to his grandfather's house. He says, yes, Zaidi, what can I do for you? And Rav Shlomo Zalman pulls out a big stack of envelopes, all addressed with names, and he says, I need you to go and deliver every one of these envelopes. So the boy looks at his watch, he says, Zaidi, it's quite late in the afternoon. Yom Tov is coming, it's busy, there's still things to do. He said, I'll do it after Yom Tov. Can I do it on Chol Hamoed? Can it wait? Anyway, if it's money or something, they can't go to the bank, they can't use it right now anyway. So he said, no, I need you to do it right now. It needs to be done before Yom Tov. So you don't argue with the Gadol Hador. And so he took and he went traveling around Yerushalayim from one address to the other. He would knock on the door, and they would answer, and he would say, "This is an envelope from my Zayda, Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach." Everybody said, "Thank you, fine." By one house, when he gives over the envelope, the person, Rav Shlomo Zalman, gave me an envelope? What could he possibly be giving me? And he opens it up, and he sees in there are tickets to the Gan HaChayot, to the Jerusalem Zoo. And the man's face lights up. He says, "Thank you very much," and he goes into his house. And now the grandson is bewildered. My grandfather made me run around on Erev Yom Tiv to give tickets to the zoo that you can't use anyway until Chol HaMoed? Why did he do this? And he went to the other houses, and another one opened up the envelope as well, and he saw Taka. That's everybody got the same thing. Tickets to the zoo. So Yom Tov came, and the boy, the grandson, went to his family, and he came to his Zayda on Yom Tov. And he said to him, "Zaydi, whatever you ask me to do, you know that I'll do." I said, "I just have one question for you. I saw that some of the people opened up. I saw you all had the same thing, tickets to the zoo. No one's going to the zoo on Erev Yom Tov. Why was it so important that everybody got this envelope before Yom Tov began?" And Rav Shlomo Zalman said to him the following. He said, "You know that it's Yom Tov coming, and then it's Shabbos coming, and what do all the kids do? They play in the streets. And kids that are playing in the streets, they talk to themselves. And what do they talk about? You know what all the kids are talking about on Yom Tov? Everyone is saying where my family is going for Chol HaMoed for the trip. This one's going to the Negev, this one is going to Tiberia, this one is going here, this is going there." What about all the poor families in Yerushalayim who can't afford to go any place for Chol HaMoed trip? Who can't afford to take their children anywhere? What are those children going to say? You know how bad they're going to feel? So I wanted to make sure that I gave over the tickets to the zoo before Yom Tov began. So the parents will come to their children and say, "Guess where we're going on Chol HaMoed this year? We're going to the Gan HaChayot, to the zoo." And that way, when all the kids are playing on Yom Tov, so these children will be able to tell their friends, "We're also going to the zoo. We'll also have something that we're going to do on this Chol HaMoed." If a person has to be this sensitive and this compassionate and this understanding of the daigas, of the worries of an animal, of a donkey, that a donkey shouldn't go into some kind of a psychotic fit because he's busy worrying, how come the ox is eating and I'm not eating? Al achas kama v'kama, all the more so, is a person going to be obligated to be merciful to the human beings, to the people that are in our lives. And that's really what we saw in last week's Parsha, in Kedoshim Tiyu. We have the famous mitzvah that we spoke about on Shabbos a little bit as well, and that is Ve'afta l'reyecha kamoicha ani Hashem. Love your fellow Jew the way that you love yourself. Now the Gemara tells us by Hillel HaZaken that once upon a time there was a would-be ger that wanted to come and convert. And he comes to Hillel and he says to him the following words, "Teach me kol haTorah kula b'regel achas, on one foot." Meaning the one leg. What is the one leg, the one pillar on which all of the Torah is resting upon? I want to know, what should I do if I'm going to get myself into this? So what's it going to mean to me? What kind of a person do I have to become? I see it's a vast Torah. There's many, many mitzvahs. But what's it all about? And Hillel told him the following, Ma'adasani loch. Whatever is hateful to you, asavi lechavercha, you can't do to your friend. Whatever you do not want done to yourself, you are not allowed to do to your friend. You must be sensitive, you must be understanding, you mustn't offend another person because you would not want that done to yourself. And these are the same words, V'afta l'reyecha kamoicha. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants that you should love every Jew the way you love yourself. Says the Pele Yoetz on this mitzvah over here. He explains that all of Yisrael is guf echad, they're one body. The ish echad, the one person. Just like my hand over here is connected to my body. If I cut my hand, it's an ache and a pain to the whole body. If I cut other parts of my body that are bigger, central areas of my body, has a bigger effect on my body. Every single Jew in this world matters. And every single Jew, we're all interconnected. So if I'm not nice to one, it has an effect on the rest of the Jewish people. If I'm nice to one, I'm kind to one, I'm compassionate to one, I'm loving and caring to one, so the whole group, the whole body of Klal Yisrael is elevated and it's emboldened with a new spirit. And therefore, a person must love their fellow Jew the way that you love yourself. Now, you can never really love somebody exactly the way that you love yourself, but it has to be kamecha, as much as it could be like you would love yourself. And that's what Hillel was telling him. Think about it like this: what you would not want done to yourself, never do that to somebody else. What you know bothers you, what upsets you, what aggravates you, what frustrates you, what puts you in a bad mood, never do that to another Jew. Because if you do, you're violating the Klal Gadol, the main principle, the foundation of which all of the Torah rests on. So if you have to be compassionate to a donkey, and you have to be compassionate to a mother cow or a sheep, that she shouldn't live with the tremendous anxiety and the worry and the tsar, the anguish of watching her child be slaughtered in front of her, and then and see that. So then how much more so do we have to be sensitive and kind and understanding to the emotional world, to the needs and the wants and the desires of another Jew? I heard just today a very beautiful Maisa, very powerful, all about this idea. There was a man in the city of Chadera in Eretz Yisrael, who Rahman al-Itzlan, he was a rather young fellow, and his wife got very sick with a machla, and she passed away. And she left behind to him 7 Yisaimim, 7 young little children, and he was all by himself, and his wife passed away, and they were ages of, who knows, infancy to probably 8, 9, only 10 years old. And the man is trying to be a father, and a mother, and a babysitter, and a cleaning lady, and everything, and a breadwinner, all at the same time. And as the months were going on after the petir, after the passing of his wife, he was beginning to literally fall apart, and everybody saw. So people tried, they came over, they would take the kids to the park and play with them. They would come in, they would clean their house. They tried to gather some money for him, so they had a little extra money for this and for that. But it was such an anguish on the man. He was so beside himself. He was what's called shever kli. He was a broken person as a result of everything that he was going through. One day he's in shul, Shachris, and a very prominent Rav from the neighborhood comes in. And this Rav has a very big and beautiful ma'aseh, a beautiful organization. It's not just an organization. They basically have a huge area of land. It starts with nursery school, goes kindergarten, goes to elementary school, goes to junior high school, goes to high school, Beis Yaakov, then even Mesifta goes into Beis Midrash. They have an orphanage for Yisayimim, for orphans. They have a soup kitchen for the poor. It's a massive, massive operation that he has going on over there. And he's a very charming and charismatic person. And he comes to the shuls after Shachris, and he stands up and he gives a very beautiful, inspiring drasha about why everybody there should be involved and supporting the local ma'aseh, the local organization that is doing so much for our community. And this guy is sitting and standing in the back, taking off his talis and tefillin, and he's thinking, I don't even have a penny to my own name. I wish I could give some tzedakah and support this, but I can't do anything. As he's taking off his talis and tefillin, and he's getting ready to leave, suddenly he sees this Rav walking towards him. And he says, "Oh, Gewalt, what does this rabbi want from me? I don't have any money. I'm going to get embarrassed." So the Rav walks over, and he says to him, "Can you do me a favor?" He says, "Rabbi, I'm so sorry. Maybe you don't know. I don't have any money. I can't support you." He says, "I'm not asking you for money. Don't worry. Can you do me a favor?" He says, "When I finish here, can you just stick around for like 5 minutes afterwards? I need something from you." He said, "Look, if you need money, I'm not asking for money. Don't worry, no money." Okay? The Rav goes around, he makes his collection, gets what he gets, everybody starts packing out of the shul, and this man is still standing there. And the Rav comes walking over and he says, Baruch Hashem, you waited for me, thank you so much. I need to ask you a favor. Could you give me a ride back to the school, back to this big place that I have? And he says, "Yeah, sure, you're right where I live, sure, it'll be my pleasure. Come on in." So they get in the car and they start driving, and they get to the school, and he says, "When we get there, can you do me another favor? Could you just come in with me? I want to show you everything we have going on over here." He says, "I don't know why you want to show me, Rabbi. I'm telling you, I don't have a penny to my name. I can't support. Go find a gvir, find a wealthy man. Maybe he'll be impressed with what you have. He'll support you, please. I don't." I'm not asking, did I ask you for money? I'm not asking you for money. I want you just to come and see this operation that we built over here. Okay. They park the car, and he takes them from the nursery school into the kindergarten, to the elementary school. He shows them the high school. He shows them the base midrash, afterwards base Yaakov seminaries. He shows them the soup kitchen. He shows them the orphanage for the orphans. And by the time that this is over, this man is wondering to himself, what does the rabbi want from me? Why is he showing me all of this? See, once again, he says, "Rabbi, I'm so sorry. I'm not sure why you're showing me everything, but if it's money, he said, "I'm not asking you for money." He said, about 15 years ago, my wife also passed away. And she left me with 7 children to raise all by myself. And at that time, he said, my life was falling apart. And I wondered to myself, how in the world am I going to do this? He said, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave me strength. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave me Siyata D'Shemaya. And everything that you see here, I built in the last 15 years since my wife passed away. He says, Hashem is going to give you Siyata D'Shemaya also. And Hashem is going to help you also. And Hashem is going to lift you up also. And He's going to bless you also. And things are going to turn out for the good for you also. That's how a Jew has to live. We came to this world, as the Nefesh HaChaim writes, when his son is writing an introduction to the Nefesh HaChaim, he says, my father used to musser us out constantly when he would see that we were not performing our duties as Balei Chesed, as kind people. And he would tell us, Lo Adam, lo la'atzmai nivra, you were not created for yourself. You're obligated to help other people as much as you're humanly possible and even beyond. And the only way that you could really help another person the way that you are supposed to is if you are compassionate and you are caring and you are understanding and you are sensitive and you understand where they are coming from. And then when you get to that place, you are fulfilling the mitzvah v'yafta l'reyecha kamoicha, fulfilling the great mitzvah of loving a Jew the way that you would love yourself. Whatever you would want done to you, you have to do for others. What you don't want done to you, you're not allowed to do to others. The sensitivity, the understanding that you want other people to have with you. You know, husbands and wives always come when they're arguing in my office together. And the arguing, you don't do this, you don't do this, you don't do that. It's like a ping pong game, back and forth, back and forth. Why don't you just keep one thing in mind? Whatever is hateful to you, do not do to the other person. It's such a simple equation of life. If you don't like when people are screaming at you, so why are you screaming at her? If you don't like when people tease you, so why are you teasing her? If you don't like when people put you down, so then why are you putting her down? If you don't like when people hit you, so then why are you hitting him? Why are you doing these things? If you don't like when people don't listen to you, then why are you not listening to her or him? Because whatever is bothersome to you, do not do to another person. Whatever you like, whatever is good, whatever makes you feel good, that you go and you do for others as well. We always try to do as much as we can. So the Torah is teaching us through the animals that although an animal, we would seem to think we don't have to be concerned so much about their thoughts, about their emotional world, about their anguish, about their anxiety. Says the Torah, no, you do have to care. You do have to be worried that maybe something that you're doing is causing pain and anguish to the animal. If that's what you have to think about for an animal, al achas kama v'kama, all the more so is a person going to be obligated to make sure that they have compassion and sensitivity towards another human being. Once we're talking about animals and we're talking about human beings, we'll tell you one last story. This is a famous story that went around the world. I think it might have even been before Rav Chaim Kanievsky passed away, but certainly became viral after he passed away. And it has to do with a cat as well. There was once a yeshiva bacher in Eretz Yisrael, I forget his name at this time, let's call him Daniel, and he was very big into taking pictures of Gedolei Yisrael, of the Gedolim. And he had a camera and he would go around everywhere, Yerushalayim, Bnei Brak, everywhere he could, and he would try to snap pictures of the Gedolim, of the great leaders of our generation. So he once came to get a bracha from Rav Chaim Kanievsky, and as he's there getting a bracha, Rav Chaim Kanievsky, he sees that Rav Chaim is feeding a cat a little saucer of milk. Now this picture is a golden picture of Chaim who doesn't waste a second of his life. He's busy learning 18 hours a day, and when he's not learning, he's counseling people. You find the Gadol Hador in a moment of true humanness, compassion on a cat. He puts the thing right there and he puts it on the cat. Says the Bach is there, and he snaps the camera, he takes a picture. Rav Chaim Kanievsky turns, he hears the picture, and he says, get rid of that picture. And the man said, well, I'm just taking a picture. He says, I don't want that, get rid of the picture. He didn't want the picture, whatever it was, he didn't want the picture going around of him feeding out, whatever the reason was, he didn't want the picture. Get rid of the picture. You didn't ask me permission, get rid of the picture. So the young man was shaken up, and he opened up his camera. In the old days when you had to open up a camera, there was something called film inside of there. And he took the film out and he threw it into the trash. And he apologized and he left. 25 years later, this man now is married with children, and he comes to Eretz Yisrael with his son for his bar mitzvah. And he walks into the house of Rav Chaim Kanievsky to get a bracha. And as he's walking to the table, Rav Chaim looks up and he says, I've been looking for you for 25 years. I need to ask you mechila. Please forgive me for getting upset with you that time that I asked you to throw away your film. Now the question of the story, of course, is, was Chaim Kanievsky really thinking about this guy for 25 years? How is it he's seen about 100,000 faces in the last 25 years? He remembered this guy 25 years. The special siyata d'shmai, there was something that was bothering Reb Chaim Kanievsky. He felt some point in his life he was not nice to this person. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu worked everything out. The guy walks in, Reb Chaim sees his face, he's reminded, he says, please forgive me, I was thinking about this 25 years. You could have compassion on a cat, but of course you have to have more compassion and sensitivity on a human being. So we learn from that which we have in the animal kingdom, how much we have to be worried about their anxiety and everything, and then we have to transfer it over. And we have to have that pity on the people as well. V'yafta l'recha kamoicha. That's the klal gadol. That's the main principle of the Torah. And if we do that, then we acquire this midah of chemla, of mercy, like the Sefer Chinuch, like the Ramban is saying, and like the Rambam is saying, that even perhaps on a different level of the compassion, to actually put yourself in the hoofs of that animal over there, and think about how they feel. And if you learn how to think like that for an animal, then for sure you'll be able to think about that for your wife, for your children, for your friends, for your co-workers, for your employees, your employer, and so on and so forth. And we'll be living a life of people that are these Balei Chemla, the people of mercy, of compassion, with the midas taivas that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants, the v'yafta l'recha kamoicha, to love a fellow Jew the way that we love ourselves, and we will never do anything that would be hateful to us. We would never do to anyone else. Be'ezras Hashem. You're welcome. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Good night. Have a good night.